All right, we are back with a new video, and we are back talking about new episodes of the Owl House. And today we got clouds in the horizon, aka the penultimate episode of the season and the lead up to the Day of Unity. And there's a lot to get into in this episode. They really just jam packed as many things as they could into this episode at once, and it was pretty enjoyable for the most part, I'm not gonna lie. So let's get right into it. So the episode opens with a scene between Bellows and the Collector, and we really get a sense of the Collector's personality, and we basically sort of feel bad for the Collector in a way, or at least I did, in the sense that obviously the Collector wants to get out of prison, and they talked about wanting to play games and how they want to add a third player, and I like seeing their voice for a lot of it, and hearing and seeing their facial expressions for a lot of it. I found that pretty interesting. Now, granted, I still think the Collector is probably going to be the big bad guy at the end of the day. I mean, probably viewing a lot of these games as probably pretty catastrophic, so there's that to consider. But Bellows won't let them out, and that's something at least, so we'll have to get more follow up on that. We then cut to Odalia, and then me having to once again deal with the fact that she's voiced by Rachel McFarlane, and every time I hear her voice, I just hear Haley, so there's that. Ed, Em, and Amity are trying to get in her head about the Day of Unity, but they get caught before anything can happen, and they are grounded. So there's that. Also, Odalia talks about Alador on their business relationship. They really just seeing just how cold and heartless Odalia is, really treating her husband like a business partner more than an actual life partner. So there's that. We then cut to the cats, as they are named. And again, we once again get a joke about how Darius doesn't like that name, but whatever. And we get a sense of their plan, although we don't actually see much of it come to fruition in this episode. But basically, it involves Ida turning into Rain, and in turn, basically impersonating them, and also getting a sigil, which would basically give up Ida's ability to use magic. But again, a lot of this is because of Ida's curse and how apparently her curse allows her to corrupt magic. So the idea is that they end up corrupting the draining spell in a way so that it doesn't kill everyone. And it's pretty interesting. So, like, there's obviously Rain is very uncomfortable with it, as it would require Ida to give up wild magic and her caving into the system, more or less. And then Lilith even tries to volunteer, saying how she knows more about the Emperor's Coven than Ida does, and how she's technically also cursed, but Ida reminds her that, she doesn't know the curse as well, and that she's throwing another pity party. So there's that. But yeah, they go along with it. And then also there's a weird gag, or not a gag, but a quick moment of Luce in her talisman. We finally learn what it's going to be, and it is an egg. Apparently, this is so that the egg talisman can decide what it wants to be, I guess. That's a very nice moment as well. We also get some stuff from King about how he wants to be involved, but not really much comes out of that. And then in turn, Ida reminds Luce that she is going on a rescue mission to save her girlfriend. And yes, they are trying to go pretty much all out at this point. Like, they're really trying to make it a point of how Amity isn't just Luce's friend, she is her girlfriend, which is pretty nice, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So anyway, Luce gets off the ship and runs into Willow and Gus, who agree to help her in her mission to rescue Amity. And then we get to the Amity Manor, where Amity is stuck in a room with Ed and M because she's grounded. And she talks about being worried about Luce. And, I feel like the whole reveal of Luce coming in is pretty nice. I mean, we see Amity basically talking about what Luce would say if she was in a situation. And she obviously walks away, but we see Ed and M's faces change, and they're reacting to what's happening. It's pretty obvious that Luce is coming in, so there's that. So Luce comes in, they talk a bit, and then they kiss, even though, and I know this is a pretty big moment for the show, and I certainly like it as well, as someone who definitely appreciates Lumity. Although I will say, I mean, come on, we got it from the back angle, so it's not even that great of an angle, but it's just enough so that we all know exactly what happened. And one other thing I noticed about this scene was that the animation was a bit different in the moment. So apparently they got this guest animator to come in and animate this specific scene, and it caused it to be a bit more fluid than it is normally. It sort of reminds me of the episode Mindful Education of Steven Universe, which was entirely animated by a guest animator, which in turn led it to be a bit more fluid, a bit more anime based. And again, I guess they just wanted that as a way to enhance the moment, which I did appreciate to a degree. So there's that. Meanwhile, they finally break out of the manor and decide to go to the factory where Odalia is sending all of her abomination machines. And also, I forgot to mention Kiki in this episode. And Kiki has been demoted at this point thanks to being stuck in all this mess. And she's basically now a delivery person. And it's pretty interesting seeing her being all sad and miserable and stuff. So there's that. So anyway, they sneak into the factory. King is sort of left outside because he needs to be kept safe, I guess. And again, we have this quick moment of King hearing the collector's voice, but it doesn't really lead to anything. But it's pretty clear at this point that King is probably going to be the person that saves the day at the end of the day. I mean, obviously, we already know that like he is a Titan, and there's set up to him not really knowing what he is. And obviously, back in Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's story, got the ability to roar. I feel like this is all setting it to him being the key to solving all this, and whether it's a redemption arc for the Collector or for probably not Bellows, because I feel like Bellows is too far gone, but the Collector could get a redemption arc. I feel like that's a possibility, and probably King will be the key to allowing that to happen if that were the case. So there's that. Anyway, they get into the factory, and it turns out that Alador isn't quite in on the plan either. He's sort of getting cold feet, but Odalia just isn't having any of it. And we essentially get a fight scene break out. But first, we have to hear Odalia further admonish her children for all the mess that they've caused. And obviously, we see Odalia really giving Luce a hard time as well. Oh, I also forgot Hunter is involved in all this. In case you haven't noticed, I decided to go off script for this episode, but that just is what it is. Yeah, Hunter's involved in all this as well, and there's a moment where he gets abducted, or so it seems, so we'll get into that in a bit. Anyway, so Amity is yelling at her mommy because she isn't being nice to her girlfriend, sort of her reveal that Amity is dating someone, and Odalia turns to her and is like, girlfriend, eh? And at this point, like, I mean, people that know about, like, what the showrunners say know that homophobia isn't really a thing in the Boiling Isles. So, again, this leads into Odalia saying how she'll find Amity a new girlfriend because she can't accept Luce because Luce is a criminal and not because she's a girl. So, that's nice. At least Odalia is accepting. So, there's that. So, anyway, some stuff happens. Aldor gets involved in the fight, and then the bomb drops. They all tell Odalia that by shipping all these abomination machines to Bellows, that she is helping to fund the end of the world. And it turns out that Odalia is okay with this. She's alright with most of the world dying, most of the people being killed off, because Bellows apparently made a promise to her that if she goes along with this plan and bringing about the end of the world, that in the New World Order, the Blights will be made royalty. And it should be pretty obvious that this promise is essentially BS. I mean, there's no way that Bellows is actually going to spare them. I mean, Odalia is probably going to be screwed if this actually happens. They're all going to die anyway. But the fact that Odalia is so snowed by this and so blinded by her desire for social status and her desire to be superior to everyone else is obviously what's motivating this decision. And I find it a bit strange too, because it's like, okay, so even if they keep this promise and Odalia really becomes a royalty in this new world order, I mean, it's like, who's she going to be royalty for? I mean, you think that someone like her would want people to still be around that exist to be beneath her and stuff. So I found that a bit strange, but it is what it is. But again, all this is supposed to highlight just how evil Odalia is. And yeah, to be fair, she is evil. I mean, she's basically admitting that she's okay with mass genocide here and admitting that she is biologically superior to everyone else. And then Amity says that she's never going to talk to her again. Quite the bold statement there. So yeah, so they defeat the robots. They're able to escape. And then it cuts to them on the ship where, again, they're all with Luce and everything, and it seems like they're all going to be together for the end, for saving the day. But then it turns out that Luce was actually Hunter this entire time under an illusion. And it turns out that the Hunter that was supposedly captured by the abomination and being sent to Bellows is the real Luce. And it cuts to Luce being transported, and she's basically, it seems like Luce is accepting of all this. Like, she intentionally allowed herself to be captured so that she can be sent to Bells directly, supposedly also to help Ida out, but it is what it is. But yeah, there's quite a bit that happened in this episode. And again, it was all pretty good, pretty jam packed. I mean, some pretty good reveals as well. So there's that. I don't really know where this episode fits per se, but I feel like it is pretty strong. I don't know if it's a top 10 episode or not. I mean, I'll have to decide for myself, but I feel like it is definitely going to be somewhat high in the episode ranking. Because even though, yes, it is jam packed, I mean, I feel like a lot of the stuff is pretty interesting. And I feel like it does pace itself accordingly to where, yeah, I mean, ideally, we probably would have gotten a bit more of the Ida stuff, but I feel like that's pretty much what the next episode's going to be dedicated to. So there's that. I don't know if they're going to do a side by side thing where the stuff that happens in the next episode is just happening at the same time. I mean, I really hope it doesn't. I kind of hope it picks up with Luce getting there right as Ida's getting there. So there's that. So we'll see what happens. And I know this felt a bit different than the other reviews that I did, but I just felt that it was best to share what I felt unscripted. I didn't write a script at all for this, so I was just basically going off my mouth here. But yeah, this was a pretty good episode, and I'm pretty excited to see what'll happen in the season 2 finale next week, as well as the 3 specials that follow. And there we go. That'll do it with this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out with the channel. And I do have more videos like this planned in the future, so stay tuned for that. But for now, that is the video. See ya.